Here we go, everybody. Welcome to our 2022 Volunteer Town Hall. We're glad all of you can join us. I know there's still a few folks trickling on in, but Jill has a lot of great information to share. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, at least with our housekeeping. A few things just so that you are aware. Tracy and I are taking attendance for all of you that are joining us this evening. So we'll be crediting you with volunteer time for attending the town hall. For those of you that are watching a recording of this at a future date, please just send me an email after viewing this and I'll be able to credit you also with volunteer time for participating. This is in the webinar format, so that means you're not able to see each other, but we are still definitely taking questions and such. If you have a question, the best place to put it is in the Q&A. If you want to just share some general, like, that's wonderful, great, so excited information with everybody in the group, feel free to post that in the chat. Even if you just want to do a hello, you're welcome to do that in the chat. Be sure it's set to view for everyone to see it and not just the three of us that you see here right now. Additionally, we'll have a few points throughout the presentation for Q&As too. And so when we get to those, feel free to raise your hand if you'd rather speak your question instead of using the Q&A. If that's going to be easier for you, you can use the raise hand option and then we'll unmute you so you can speak your question during one of the Q&A times. So I think that's about all I have right off the bat. I'm going to turn it over to Jill to take it away.
Great. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks to Tracy as well for making this all possible tonight. And we have a lot to cover. I went through sort of how the timeline is going to work with Tracy and Sarah, and they might pop in occasionally if I'm running a little bit long, just to give me a time check. I've asked them to sort of pop in and say, hey, Jill, we got to keep moving. But we have a lot to cover. How I'm planning to do this tonight is sort of three parts, but the first part is almost the first, all but the last, the master site plan. And I'll break the master site plan into two pieces, the garden and the arboretum. But so we're going to go through a lot of information, then we'll pause, take questions, then we'll go through the garden, then we'll go through the arboretum. And after each of those, we'll take questions. So please, I hope you have questions. I'm more than happy to answer them, and if it's something that I'm not talking about tonight, please, jump in as well. But I'm going to jump in and get started. And hopefully we have plenty of time for conversation. And of course, if we don't get to something tonight, or if you think of it later tomorrow, please reach out to Tracy or Sarah and they will pass along your questions to me and I will be happy to answer any and all questions. All right, so I'm sort of stuck here. Actually, that's the first thing. I'm not advancing, Tracy. Or Sarah.
You might click on your screen and does it? I mean, if you click somewhere in there, does it work?
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tip for the day for Jill. All right. I always start with mission and vision. So I just like to remind everyone, and I start this at anything we do at the board or even at staff meetings, just because I think this is where we're grounded. And everything that we're sharing tonight is grounded in the mission and vision that were approved by the board just over 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess. But Holden Forest and Gardens connects people with the wonder, beauty, and value of trees and plants to inspire action for healthy communities. And then our vision that all communities will be transformed into vibrant places where trees, plants, and people thrive. We really do use that as the guidepost for how we make decisions, how we move forward about new things that we might stop doing, and any type of business or operational decision. We stay grounded in the mission and vision. The goals associated with those, and this was a 5-year plan, 20 to 2024, so we're about halfway through it, is to build a more engaged, connected, collaborative community presence, to deliver a visitor experience that inspires wonder and highlights the beauty and value of trees and plants, to catalyze action and model solutions for environmental stewardship and climate change, to increase diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusiveness at every level within HF&G, and consistently achieve sustainable financial results that enable growth and capital investment. So everything that we're sharing tonight ties back to these overarching plans for a 5-year window, as well as the mission and vision. So a little summary. we're already about halfway through this year, but I haven't had a chance to bring you up to date. But a couple of highlights from last year, which I know are always important for me to share with all of you, is some of the great work that was done. We achieved accreditation from the American Alliance of Museums, and this was really a deep years-long project. It was the second time the Arboretum has been accredited, the first time the combined entity has been accredited, and the very first time ever that the garden has been accredited by AAM. And it was a deep process that covers all operational, governance, mission-based issues. And it was really pleased that we were accredited with full accreditation for the next 10 years. We raised $53,000 that helped cover the cost of a lot of the tree damage that was done in the 2 winter storms last year. We planted our first Jesse Owens Olympic oak tree in Rockefeller Park, and we are planting the second tree, or actually we're planting 3 trees to represent all 4, will be the total of the 4 gold medals that Jesse Owens won in the Olympics, with a planting on Arbor Day this year. Twilight in the Whimsical Woods reopened. We had our volunteers back in force working that event, which was so much fun and was attended by more than 500 people and raised more than $118,000. And of course, another great feature at the Arboretum, formerly known as Heath Pond, now Logston Pond, that renovation was officially launched, and we're really excited each season as that continues to bloom and grow, and look forward to more good things to come with that area. Attendance last year, we really beat our expectations. We were very conservative going into last fiscal year. And just so you know, our calendar year is starts October 1. So we're in our end of our second quarter for this fiscal year. But last year we beat our attendance goal, which is the very top line on the right-hand side. And you'll see that the second line was our actuals. So we were really pleased that we were coming out of those pandemic conditions, and we look forward to even more strength in our attendance and visitation this year. And then lastly, from last year's highlights, our financials, we also left in a really strong position, a $2 million operating surplus, excluding depreciation, which changes that surplus a bit. Contributed income was 33% higher than budget and 8% higher than the previous year. Earned income rebounded to 85% higher than the conservative budget, and 16% higher than the previous year. It was that much higher because at the time we did our budgeting for this past fiscal year, we really had no idea at that point how the pandemic would continue to affect us. But the really good news is that we had a strong year last year, and the board of directors approved putting aside some of the surplus funds to invest in some really important advancements for the institution. We are investing in some new holiday show planning for the garden campus, some really terrific investment in the horticulture and facilities buildings at the Arboretum campus, which will really help provide increased support for that full team over there, as well as some really needed IT and AV upgrades. So we were really happy that we had some surplus funds to invest in things that we might not otherwise be able to do so. For this year, everything that I'm sharing is progress we've made this year and last year and more to come, but was to complete our master plan, which I'm sharing with you later, to advance our brand positioning to showcase expertise and meet audience goals, implement more environmental stewardship programs, more environmental stewardship work in our programs and facilities management, to align technology with our strategic goals. So really making good decisions about how we can maximize the use of technology and making sure we have the infrastructure to do that. To continue to activate staff and board engagement and education in our diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusiveness initiatives, and to also really take time to invest in the amazing staff team that's here from both a professional development side and a recognition side. So excited to be doing all of that this year. So I'll start with a little bit of an update on where we're at with DEAI programs. And I know that there are also volunteer efforts moving forward. So I focused here on the things that you might be less familiar with. With direction from some really strong leadership on our board of directors, we were charged with getting 100% participation in training offered by the Racial Equity Institute in partnership with Third Space Action Lab here in Cleveland. I'm really pleased to say that we're at 96% participation. And I think that means to this point, we've only had one board member who's been unable to attend, and I would say it's less than 5 staff members, but regular full and part-time staff members. So super excited that we're all on the same page and grounded in language and foundation. We launched some access programs that have had really terrific response. Museums for All has been in place for years. That's the $1 admission fee for those who are on any sort of public support program, anything from, WIC programs, sort of food sustained programs, or Medicaid, things like that. We launched an access membership program that is for people of that same who might not otherwise be able to join as a member. They can purchase a membership for $25. It's exactly the same as the family level membership, exactly the same, except that, if you're on one of those public assistance programs, we can help you purchase that for $25. Delighted to say we have more than 450 members who have made that choice, and we're so pleased that it's had that exception that it has. An investment policy, this is sort of a really behind the scenes piece, but our investment committee of the board approved a new investment policy statement with DEI provisions. We deeply engaged the community in the master planning process to date with an external steering committee. The HR team is launching bias and recruiting training for staff, and there have been some really great programs like our Science on Friday programs that were focused on roadmaps to building equitable and inclusive research experiences in STEM education programs. So all of that work and so much more is going on, and we're delighted to have all of you be a part of this and work as well. And I know there's more to come on that volunteer front. So I have a lot to cover, and now I'm going to go into next section, which is People for Trees. I wanted to give you an update on a really significant initiative that we launched last year, which was People for Trees. And I wanted to provide this context before I move forward into sort of the practical implementation of it, in that we really see People for Trees as the umbrella for many things that we're doing at the organization to care and steward and promote the importance of our tree canopy within the worlds that we live in, our communities, our forests, whether that forest be in your urban park or out, in a forested area, like the surroundings of, Holden Arboretum. There are 2 elements that I'll talk about, or 3 tonight, but the top 3 that are shaded are those that are most directly associated under that umbrella of People for Trees. And that's the newly created last year and launched 15,000 tree campaign. And I'll give you an update on where we're at with that. And then Tree Corn Working Woods, which were launched just about the time I started with the organization, but about 3 or 4 years ago. And I'll give you an update on how those have progressed, but also 2 really essential elements to the broad umbrella of People for Trees, as well as you'll see in the white boxes below, all of the ongoing initiatives that are really part of our effort to engage people in the natural world around them and to specifically raise awareness of the importance of that tree canopy. So People for Trees. People for Trees, and this element, which is the most public element, is the campaign that we launched to encourage the planting of 15,000 new trees by 2025 to help restore the tree canopy in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. It was what we really see this as our contribution. We're part of the Cleveland Tree Coalition. I serve on the executive committee of that group, which has about 8 or 9 other like-minded organizations, as well as a much broader membership organization, which I think has more than 40 or 50 organizations engaged. And that tree coalition was built at the time the Cleveland Tree Plan was launched to specifically support those efforts to reforest Cleveland. This is really our contribution to that, to the coalition and to Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. And why did we pick a 15,000 tree campaign and People for Trees? Well, when we thought about how can we best serve and support the work of the Cleveland Tree Coalition, we thought about what assets do we have that make us unique and we can bring to the table. We have a really deep team, and I don't know if this number is still exactly right, but we have 60 dedicated scientists, arborists, community foresters, horticulturists, educators, and others on staff who really have deep tree expertise. And then you'll see this other list. We also know that unlike many of the other organizations involved in the Cleveland Tree Coalition, we already have a built-in audience base of members, of visitors, of volunteers, of social media followers. We also know that the idea that any one organization could plant sort of the 300,000 trees that are necessary to restore the canopy, which is a pretty daunting task. We also know that that's even a daunting task for 10 or 50 organizations. But really, how we're going to make a difference is educating and partnering and encouraging and hopefully bringing more people onto sort of this, path of saying, I really want to help regreen the city by planting a tree. We have those audiences that we can reach out to and hopefully inspire to give back to their community by planting a tree in their own backyard. And it's sort of building one advocate at a time. And that's how we're best positioned. So we felt we have an audience base and a level of expertise to encourage this moving forward. So we launched this campaign for people to make pledges to plant a tree in their backyard. I made my pledge. I actually pledged to plant 2 trees. I got one in the yard last year. I'll get my second one in the yard this year. It needed to be planted in the spring versus the fall. But we're delighted that we had more than 1,200 private individuals make pledges to plant more than 4,200 trees. We know that at least 1,300 trees were already planted. We gave 1,200 trees away separately from the pledges. We sold 250 trees through our plant sale last year. We have more than 202 community trees being, plantings in progress. And we also received really great support. We received more than $275,000 in donations and grants to specifically support this effort of tree planting. This year, what we're doing is we really want to continue to advance this idea. If you think 15,000 trees divided by 5 years, 3,000, trees a year. So we're encouraging more people to make pledges, but we're following up with all those initial pledges and saying, hey, did you plant your tree? Tell us what's going on. Do you need any additional resources or help? And actually, if you open up your most recent issue of Forest and Gardens magazine, we highlighted and spotlighted a number of people who sent us in photos and pictures of them planting their tree. We'd love all of you to make a pledge to plant a tree, either in your yard or someone else's yard. It would be terrific. We're going to really shift towards being very supportive of a number of community partners who are working with us to plant trees in their communities. One of our biggest partners is the Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority. We're really supporting them in efforts they have to plant trees on their properties. We're soliciting more pledges, so we need more people to make more pledges to plant trees. We need at least 2,000 to make that goal of this year for what we want as far as 3,000 a year. We're building and, build and diversify local capacity for tree planting and maintenance. We're developing sort of a place where we can hold trees for seasonal planting. So if we have trees that come in and we can't plant them right then, where can we store those trees? And then we're also creating more resources. So if your first language is not English, we're hoping to have a Spanish language set of resources as well this year. So lots going on this year with People for Trees and that specific tree planting campaign. So the second 2 legs of the stool are the community forestry pieces. The first one, significant one, is Tree Corps. And last year, Tree Corps alone impacted more than 1,000 trees. So this is really that workforce development program. We have 6 to 8 crew members a year. They help us do all kinds of work as well as receive paid experience where once they leave and graduate from their 6-week program experience, they are ready and able to move out and secure jobs in the tree care industry, work for places like Holden Forest and Gardens, nurseries, and some choose to continue on in their education. And we've had really good luck in people moving on from that program with only 6 weeks of development, moving on into paying jobs in an industry that really needs more people to be, brought up through it. So looking forward to continuing that work this year as well. Working Woods, many of you might know, that's our 67-acre demonstration woodland site at Holden Arboretum. And again, that program continues to grow I think that the photo here, it's a little blurry, but it shows one of the workshops that we did with private landowners, but we're really working with private individuals who may not have that urban lot to plant one tree, but they may be contributing in a different way. They may have, 10, 20, 50 acres of property where they have this forested property and they need to figure out how to best manage it for whatever their needs might be. And this site allows us to do that, allows us to, demonstrate best practices, It also allows us a really great opportunity to offer cool classes like mushroom cultivation or invasive, plants management. And there are many other great partnerships that we have. And last year, I'll look at that second to the last bullet. We also created a really terrific, or we're partnered with a small woodland owner manual. So, really helping service those private individual landowners that might want to support this project by managing their own property in the most effective way. So again, just circling back to say all of that is part of this comprehensive picture of People for Trees, with probably the most public element, and the element that we have gotten just a lot of great support and backing behind is that 15,000 tree campaign. But tree core and working woods are equally as important elements of that. And I didn't want to lose that picture of this is People for Trees. It's an umbrella program for all the great work that we're doing. So now I'm going to share some really exciting news on sort of what's happening and what to come, especially as we're now heading into spring. I think was officially yesterday was the first day of spring, and lots more to come as we enter into the warmer seasons. So I'll start with Holden Arboretum. As you'll see, we have a full complement of programs, starting with Syrup on Tap, which just was completed this past weekend, all the way through the Canopy Walk and Tower, online plant sales, camps, stick work continues, concerts are back, which is super exciting, and a rose show in September. So a full complement of programs. We really are coming out of that pandemic period at this point. Really exciting at the Arboretum campus from June 11th to September 5th. We have a new maze experience that will be in sort of that large tent. There was I think most recently there was a train exhibition there, but this maze exhibition will be on site. And it says Mission Safari on here, and that is because we don't have pictures of Mission Botanica yet, because it's being custom made for us, and the content is custom designed around trees that our horticulture team and collections team help identify. That this maze is that you work through at each point is fun, but it also teaches you about different trees, and trees that you can then also, once you exit that maze, go and find on our property to engage with. So excited to have that. I don't know if any of you remember, but we had a great butterfly exhibit made by the same company at the garden a couple of years ago, and it was a big hit. So excited to be bringing this to the Arboretum. At the garden, same thing, as you'll see, full complement of programs moving forward, starting with butterflies, which will be released in their full glory and force April 1st in the glass houses. Cactus show is coming up. I see there's a little bit of a flip here. Cactus show is actually this weekend. Then we'll do the butterflies, but a full complement of, you'll see a lot of the typical programs coming back that we weren't quite able to do during the pandemic. At the garden campus, we will also have a special exhibition in partnership with the organization Land Studio, really focused on public art and architecture. We have been working with an artist named Rachel Hayes. This is a sample of her work. It's not exactly what will be on site at the garden campus, but her work will be June through September at the garden campus, and really excited on that partnership and to have the opportunity to have a special exhibit experience at both campuses this year. And the big news this past weekend is we opened the Ron and Lydia Harrington perennial play space in that second floor gallery of the garden. If you have not seen it, please make a point to go to the garden and see it. It's really just a remarkable changeover of that space, and visitor engagement was fantastic this weekend. We've had lots of terrific coverage of this new space and really excited about it. And one of the really cool things is that also the redoing of that space upstairs has also given us just this new open, really great view into the glass houses, which just wasn't quite the same when the previous space had more walls in it. So please make a point to go see the perennial play space. It's really terrific, no matter what age you are. It's just beautiful. I'm going to jump back to the Arboretum campus, but that garden project was part of sort of a significant investment, sort of a capital investment project that we made in the garden campus. In parallel with that, we're working on something that is probably a place that many of you love. It's one of my favorite places at the Arboretum, but it's sort of the trails, Woodland Valley, or Old Valley Trail, Woodland Trail, Pearson Creek trails. There was a lot of damage to these trails, actually, a couple of which with those storms, and they needed some reinvigoration, as well as just long-term wear and tear on staircases. So we're investing in those. This takes a little bit more time because of the type of work, but I'm very pleased to say that we are moving forward with phase 1 to restore safe public access to the Old Valley Trail and the Maliafid Boardwalk, and to replace or repair some existing Old Valley Trail structures as required. Phase 2 would be some more enhancements and deeper work to the Maliafid Boardwalk. We don't have that on the books yet, but our hope is that once we're complete with phase 1, we should be able to, we're hopeful that we can move forward with phase 2, which would be some improvements to the Maliafid Boardwalk. Here are some of those trail challenges, which many of you may be familiar with, but footbridges are out, trails were washed out, some of the staircases, which is basically at the end of their lifespan and needed to be repaired. And some of the footbridges, you'll see there's a picture here of a damaged footbridge. So those were the trail challenges. The current access conditions are this as of March, and I got this update from our Chief O'Neill just a couple of days ago, but the Old Valley Trail is open with a reroute and a double back required because the stairwell is still closed, and that there was also a needed reroute because of a crossing, the creek crossing near the Affid Boardwalk, just with all of the storm damage and some erosion is really no longer accessible as it used to be. But you can go on Old Valley Trail, but you do have to double back because of that staircase. Pearson Creek's loop, the stairwell is still closed. There's a fallen tree that caused damage, blocks the path. There are more trees down elsewhere. And although we can't get fully out there, we do think that there's part of a greater part of that trail system that was also washed away in some of those more damaging storms last year. But hopefully completed by spring of next year, about this time, we'll restore the Old Valley Trail and replace some structures. We'll replace the Maliafid Boardwalk and major staircase piece on this trail. We'll replace a second major staircase, and there will be a part of Pearson Creek which will have to be permanently closed. And we worked this through with our education staff, conservation staff, et cetera. But just basically due to some damage and erosion, we've needed to move forward with some closures on that trail, but it'll be a much improved trail, and we're really excited that we can make this investment. So I'm going to pause there, and Sarah and Tracy, I'm going to ask if you could help me. If there are any questions, pop those to me.
Yes, we've got a couple.
You're right on time, Jill. Volunteers, feel free to share any questions that you have at this point. We're seeing some come through the Q&A. Here we go. To begin with, from Malcolm Hennick, is there a plan and funding to replace gas-powered maintenance equipment with electric equipment?
Oh, that's a great question. And we've started that process. So it is our goal to do that. And we were able to replace, I know at the garden, we've started to replace equipment with with more battery powered, ecologically friendly equipment. And we're hoping to make that changeover over time. So the answer is yes, and we've started to do it. And we're hopeful that we can continue to move forward with that as funding becomes available. We are very focused on that as our direction for all equipment.
And a follow-up question from Malcolm, is HF&G evaluating using solar power to supply its campuses?
That is a question that we are pursuing as we head into master planning. So we've looked at it in certain cases, and I'll give you a very specific example. We're actually working through a seed bank, a new seed banking opportunity that we have at the Long Science Center. It's hard to describe, but it's a smaller structure. And the only other seed bank structure similar to this is in Hawaii, and it's fully solar powered. Even when we were looking at powering that seed bank, it's kind of like this big container, but it will actually be like a lab working space. We know that because of the more grayness in Cleveland versus Hawaii, we couldn't fully rely on solar power. So we're starting with small instances like that, and that will be solar powered to some of our best ability as that seed banking project moves forward. It's a work in progress, by the way, but coming soon. And then as we head into master planning, we will be making it a priority with our ultimate design goals to make all of our buildings and structures as energy efficient as possible, and really considering solar power when possible.
And Chris would like to know where you are planting the other 3 Jesse Owens trees.
Oh, so we have working with, so this is a partnership project with Old Brooklyn Development Corporation and also Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. There's a transition in staff, but so it's a joint effort between those 2 economic development corporations, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and Holden. And together, and then also with the city of Cleveland, we've identified the 3 locations. Rhodes High School will be the ceremonial tree planting this year, and that is where the original Jesse Owens oak was, and that is the tree that is just at the end of its life. So we want to make sure that one of the trees gets planted at the current Rhodes High School location to replace that tree. The other tree will be at East Tech High School, and the last location was selected by the city of Cleveland by Mayor Bibb, and that will be at League Park. So those are our 3 other locations, and in addition to the one at Rockefeller Park. And Rockefeller Park, that tree actually has a, so I just wanted to express my tremendous gratitude. I actually was really looking forward to tonight. I love doing these town halls. I love answering questions. So please continue to share them. But I know Sarah and Tracy also shared these tremendous quotes that you may have seen before, but from 3 of my colleagues on staff who just really share the deep impact that you have in these very diverse areas of the organization. And I just want to echo my gratitude for all the work that you do. And I wish that we had far more photos to share, but I got a handful of photos. And unfortunately, we couldn't get a lot of group photos because we didn't do a lot of group things, group work projects over this past couple of years. But a couple of really great projects of volunteers doing really great work for the organization. And this one on the right, just for context, that's at Little Mountain. And we had this great group of volunteers who went out and helped us clear the trails so we could actually do a program out there. But really, volunteers are in so many parts of our organization. And I look forward to having even more of you back and even more of you back and being able to work together now that we are moving hopefully past and through some of the more challenging pandemic areas and or pandemic conditions. And lastly, I wanted to acknowledge this great group that is comprised of sort of these task teams. And I know you help out in so many different areas, and grateful to all that you provide in sort of your expertise and added engagement in the program. And I look forward to continued engagement from all of you and look forward to, again, engaging you as we move forward. The future is super exciting, and there's lots to come, and you're a big part of our ability to get it all done and our ability to get to the place that we are today. So thank you for your time. And Sarah and Tracy, I'll turn it back to you.
Yep. So again, everyone, thank you so much for attending this evening. We'll be posting your hours and we'll share what we can right now. We should have that available soon, and as far as some of the slides and some of the recording too. So